In today's podcast, we cover the importance of fueling your body while training like a hybrid athlete, and how you can shift your focus from extreme caloric restriction to properly fueling your body to make each workout count.
Before we hop into today's episode, we want to say thank you for tuning in and listening to what we have to say. Over the last 3 years since we started this brand, we've set out on our mission to help people through the workouts that we create, through the supplements that we provide, and keeping people feeling confident in their workout apparel.
If you'd like to support our brand, you can go ahead to fitgrindformula.com and check out our supplements and grab a new gym outfit to feel good and confident in.
That's right. So with all that said, we want to say thank you, and let's hop into today's episode. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to go over nutrition, and specifically, we're going to go over how we're structuring our diets in this half marathon prep, where we are blending strength training and running together, and kind of talk about some different points that we want to talk about regarding nutrition. And we want to talk about how to structure your food around fueling your body versus becoming afraid of food and thinking of food as good or bad. So today's topic is all about how to fuel your body properly.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the basics and touch on the importance of proteins, fats, carbs, but not only why that's important, but also why it's important to focus on your fueling strategy for performance as opposed to fixating primarily only on fat loss.
Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope for a lot of people, where they get so fixated on good and bad, and then it starts to turn into this like obsession, and it starts to turn into this very controlling thing where it's all people think about. It's, you know, if I have this food, I'm going to become fat instantly, or if I don't adhere to this diet perfectly for the rest of my life, I'm never going to see the progress that I want to see. And we're here to really tell you that that's not the truth. You can find balance with your nutrition, and we've both taken our fitness and our nutrition to very extreme places, and there's a lot to learn from that, good and bad. And that's what we're going to kind of share today is some of our experiences with that, and some of the conclusions that we've drawn from taking it to such extreme places, and how we're practicing more balance now that is still allowing us to reach our goals and still have our sanity too, especially, you know, having a family. Like it does help to practice balance. You're not going to see less results because you're not being anal about every single thing that goes in your mouth, but you can live this healthy lifestyle, and it should add to your life. It shouldn't take away from your life.
Yeah, and how prioritizing these proper nutrients for your body is also going to help you with recovery and performing in and out of the gym. So I think it's important to take a step back and really think about what your goals are. And there's a time and a place for fat loss. And we're not saying that you can't have that goal, but that can't always be your goal. The goal can't always be fat loss, because if the goal is always fat loss, you're going to plateau and you're going to get stuck because your body's going to adapt to being in a deficit, which then leads to stress. And then we're adding in workouts and trying to add in more cardio, and that's adding in even more stress, and our everyday stress, just everything just piles on top of each other. So I think just getting to that place where we can maintain for periods of time and focus on performance, giving our bodies a diet break. And then, you know, maybe we have a wedding coming up. Maybe we have, summer's coming up and I want to look good for my vacation or my summer body. You know, then it's say, okay, I got 8 weeks to kind of dial down and lose a few pounds. But as long as we stay in a good spot physically and our body composition doesn't go over this crazy extreme, we can kind of stay at a good maintenance and shed a few pounds here and there when needed.
Yeah, it's body recomp, you know, like if you're fueling your body correctly, and when we talk about having balance, we're still eating 85-90% of the time, it's whole foods. It's each meal has a protein source, has a carb source, has a fat source. We're consuming vegetables throughout the day. We're structuring most of our diet around whole food sources. We're not saying that we're just going on crazy benders and that we're eating ice cream every other meal and we're having donuts every day. Like, that's not what we're talking about. It's allowing your body to, and your mind to have those things every once in a while, so that it doesn't feel like you're telling yourself, no, I can't have those things. And then all of a sudden you go on a bender and then you just have to start over. So 85 to 90% of the time we're structuring food around whole food source. And that's going to help you, like Alyssa mentioned, it's going to help you train hard. It's going to help you come into the gym and be consistent and build your fitness up. And I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, are constantly in this caloric deficit, and we aren't meant to be in a caloric deficit for the entirety of our life. No. We're meant to dip into caloric deficit if we're trying to lose body fats, and then reverse diet back to maintenance. And then if you want to lose more body fat, dip back down into a caloric deficit and back up to maintenance. Versus, I think a lot of people out there are just in this endless caloric deficit. And like you mentioned, your body's very smart. If it starts to realize that, hey, we're not getting as many calories, we need to find a way that we can function on fewer calories. Yeah. And your metabolism is going to adjust. Then you have to cut more calories away or add more cardio, like you mentioned. And it's just this never-ending cycle of not being happy, not seeing results.
Yep.
And it's a very vicious cycle, and we've both been there, And I think, if, like you mentioned, if you have really specific goals or really large goals, then yes, say you're trying to lose 100 pounds. Yeah, you're going to need to be in a caloric deficit for an extended period of time, but there are phases in that program where you do need to come back to maintenance for hormone adjustment and reset, for metabolism reset, for sanity. And, you have to really, like you mentioned, just look at your goal and figure out what it is that you're trying to achieve. But what we're going to talk about today is how you can shift your mindset on only solely focusing on what you see in the mirror and defining your happiness by that, but instead defining your happiness and your happiness with your progress in the gym on performance. And it's a very big mindset shift that if you can change and change that mindset, it's really going to help you, and it's going to help you find more enthusiasm and find more fulfillment from your workouts.
Yeah, this topic really hits home for me, especially because going from extreme dieting and, when you first get into fitness, you are all in and you that's your life. And not saying that it isn't now, because it is, but when you just start, you're so excited because it's something new and you're trying new things and you're doing, every supplement out there that you think is going to help you. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is, what effort you're putting in at the gym and what you're putting in your mouth every day. But if you don't have the proper nutrients to fuel your workouts, then you're going to go into the gym and you're not going to be able to give that 100% effort in the gym either. Now, a lot of my clients don't like to hear this, but typically they come in here and they've been in such a deficit for so long. And I tell them, I'm like, you guys need to eat more. And they don't like to hear that. But the biggest thing for me when I started eating more was it helped my metabolism. So then when I did go into a calorie deficit, I was actually able to eat more and lose weight.
Yeah.
Whereas you come in here and you're like, I'm eating 12,000 calories and I'm not losing weight.
1,200 calories. Not 12,000.
When you're in here and you're saying you're eating 1,200 calories, then we have to start there. And no one likes to hear this, but we have to reverse diet so that we can get you at a healthy calorie intake before taking away from that, because that isn't something I can take away from or add in more cardio or weight training to try to, reduce the calorie intake. So no one likes to hear that, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Let's take a step back for a second and let's explain just kind of basic metabolism stuff. We won't dive too deep into it, but let's talk about, gaining weight, losing weight, maintaining weight. So we all have maintenance amount of calories. It's unique to each individual. Your maintenance amount of calories is the amount of calories that if you eat that amount every day, you're going to maintain your weight. Anything above that, you're in a caloric surplus. Typically, you're going to gain weight. Anything below that, you're going to be in a caloric deficit and you're going to lose weight. Now, taking that even further, we all have a basal metabolic rate. Now, what that number is that's the amount of calories that if we just laid in bed all day, that it would take for our body to do its normal functions. That you don't have to take one single step. You don't have to do one single burpee to burn those calories. It's the calories you burn at rest. That number is not what we want to eat. So we are burning a lot of calories throughout the day just living. And if you are very close or at that basal metabolic rate number, or God forbid, if you're under that, what's going to happen is your body's going to be very resistant to getting rid of body fat. Because if you think about it evolutionary wise, your body thinks that it's starving. And if it's starving, yes, your body's going to go into fight or flight mode. And it's going to hold on to all the body fat that it can, because body fat is a very good energy source. Every gram of fat has 9 calories. So that's exactly why our body stores adipose tissue, fat tissue, is to reserve just in case we get into trouble or we go for long periods of time without food. So if you're eating below or at or around even your basal metabolic rate, what happens is your body's going to get rid of muscle tissue because it's not very good energy source. It's going to hold on to body fats, and you're going to be stuck. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. And then what's people's natural reaction is, I'm not losing weight. I need to decrease my calories. I need to increase my movement. And it's a very dangerous place to be in. So what me and Alyssa are talking about is, if you're trying to lose weight, you're still in a caloric deficit. It's not that you're eating 10,000 calories just to lose weight. That's not what we're talking about. It's still controlled. You're still, I say this with quotation marks, dieting. But it's more of being in that controlled window where you're giving your body enough food to where it realizes that it has a consistent food supply, that you can come in and have good effort in the gym and kill your workouts and make good progress, and it's going to be willing to get rid of body fats.
Yeah, for sure. I think too, when we add in those calories, people instantly think, oh, I can't, there's no way I can't do that. I'm going to gain weight. And it's like, your body will actually thank you. It's going to give you more energy. You're going to feel better. And then adding in those workouts, you're just going to feel better all around by combining the two and letting that the body relax, really. I mean, that flight or fight mode is for back in caveman days.
Yeah. I mean, people, you never knew when your next meal was going to come, So your body's going to hey, we're eating food. Let's hold on to everything that we can. Let's stack up some body fat because we might go a day without food. We might go a month without food, So it's it's got to do what it's got to do to survive.
Yeah. And, so there's other ways that we're burning calories throughout the day. So Jordan mentioned we have our basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories that we are burning doing nothing. But then we look into NET, we look into the thermogenic effect of food. So those are other ways that we're burning calories. And then we add in workouts. So adding in all of those other things, our bodies, let's say, our basal metabolic rate is 1,400 calories. Well, once I add in all those other factors and just sitting here fidgeting, I'm burning calories.
Alyssa fidgets.
Yeah. And so just the movement throughout the day, and workouts and the thermogenic effect of food and all of these other factors, we're at least burning up to 2,000 calories a day if your basal metabolic rate is 1,400. And now you can't go by, my watch says I burned 500 calories, or the bike said I burned 300 calories. That's not what we're going by.
General estimate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but typically, when you start super low, it is something that we have to build up to, and you have to trust that process. And if you get frustrated within the first couple of weeks, if you get frustrated in the first month, even, it takes a while to see those results because it took so long for you to gain that weight. It took so long for you to put yourself in this extreme calorie deficit that now we have to work our way back up.
Yeah, and we're talking about, body fat loss, because that's a lot of the clients that we see here at our gym. That's what they're looking at. And what we're going to talk about today is more about how we're fueling to perform. But if you have that goal of body fat loss, the same rules apply. And you can see body recomposition even eating near your maintenance amount of calories, where in theory you wouldn't lose weight. But if you're doing the correct things and you're strength training, you're overloading, you're building muscle mass, you're eating enough protein in your diet, you are fueling your body for those hard workouts, you're mixing in some sort of conditioning, whether that's running, which is our preferred mode of conditioning, whether that's walking, it's biking, it's cycling, it's swimming, whatever mode of cardio you're training in this hybrid style, and you're eating at maintenance calories, you're going to see some body recomp. So, like we talked about, it's not always like cut and dry, like eat at maintenance, you won't lose weight. Eat in a surplus, you're going to gain weight. Eat in a deficit, you're going to lose weight. Like there are other factors that are going to apply to that. But the main thing is like you have to come in and be ready for those workouts. And the only way you're going to do that is if you're feeling your body, if you're giving your body enough protein, carbs, fat throughout the day. And carbs are a great energy source. And we can talk about this later in the podcast too, specifics, but carbs are going to be your body's preferred source of energy. So if you're eating enough carbohydrates and you have muscle tissue, your muscles are going to store those carbohydrates in the form of glycogen, and it's going to be a very easily storable, easy energy source to tap into. So we'll kind of talk about that next.
So let's kind of start by going over what exactly that looks like for us as far as hybrid training and what our nutrition looks like for fueling. Now, we don't necessarily have the goal of fat loss or being in a surplus right now because the goal is purely performance. So we have a goal to run our half marathon at specific goal paces, and we are fueling to be able to get through each day and each workout because that is the priority. So let's go over like what a normal day looks like for us with like an easy run and a lifting session. And then we'll talk about like a long run, and then we can talk about more of like our track days and kind of what that looks like. Cause they all are pretty similar, but we can kind of break down what exactly that looks like.
Yeah. And the nutrition stays pretty consistent throughout. Now there are days in our nutrition that we are increasing our carbohydrate intake.
Yeah.
For longer, faster paced runs, that type of stuff. And also just practicing like before race day. So we're training for this half marathon right now, and we're big believers that you don't just want to like guess. You want to make sure that, okay, I've tested this before. I know this exact meal, this exact amount of water, exact amount of electrolytes at this time is exactly what I need to do. So we test it every single week. So for most of the days, our nutrition stays pretty consistent. Yeah. But the 2 days prior to our longer runs, we always increase carbohydrates those 2 days because you're going to carb load before a race. And all that simply is doing is, like I mentioned before, where your muscles have the ability to store carbohydrates. The only thing that it's doing is just stocking up the muscle full of carbohydrates. So other than that, our nutrition stays pretty consistent. And it's going to be higher in carbohydrates than you might typically see. And like we mentioned before, carbs are a really good energy source. And the main reason for that is in these workouts, we're either strength training or running, we're constantly tapping into muscle glycogen, those carbohydrates stored in the muscle. So if we're constantly tapping into it and depleting it, you need to constantly replenish that, especially if you have like really hard workouts. So we are strength training 4 days a week, and we're running 25 to 30 miles a week, and some of them are very hard, fast-paced miles, at goal paces. So there's no way in hell that I'm going to be able to get through that week if I don't properly fuel my body. And that's something that we've both learned the hard way. Last year when we were training for our wedding, so I had the selfish goal of 8% body fat, which I quickly found out that like, man, this is not all it's cracked up to be, because there's a point when you start to trade performance for body composition, like once you start to get, for men, under 10% body fat too much, and that's not your natural resting point. Like for me, that's not my body's natural resting point. So what I started to realize is I was not properly fueled for my workouts. I'd find myself bonking on runs all the time. I was not able to give the effort that I wanted to. And that is the importance of properly fueling your body. So
can you just tell people what a bonk is for those of you that don't know?
Yeah. So a bonk is, and maybe you've bonked before and you don't even know it. A bonk is when, and typically it's going to be between, and it can be a strength training session too, but typically it's where you get into your run or your strength training session, maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes into it, and you just hit a wall. And no matter what you do, it's like what you're capable of doing is not even close. So
your
for
body's
example,
like, nope.
Yeah, like I remember last half marathon prep when we were in a really sharp caloric deficit and we're training for our wedding, and I was going on a 10-mile run, and I was stoked. I started off hot, and it was that like 30 minutes in, I just hit a wall and I had to stop. I had to walk, and I'm like, that is not me. Like, what? I felt so like angry at myself for doing it. And then I was running like really slow, and my legs were lead, and it was like I just wasn't fueled for the workout. There was nothing that I could physically do in that moment. It was my own fault because I didn't put the performance goal ahead of my body composition goal. And that's fine. You know, for some people, it depends on your goal, you know. But if you are looking at for performance-based goals, you have to have enough energy, carbs, fat, protein. Those are the three things that contain energy. You have to have enough of those substrates to go out and perform in every single workout. Otherwise, you will bonk, and you're bonk, and you're bonk. And you just can't make the progress that you want because you can't put the energy output that you want.
Yeah, I got to tell my story from last week about bonking.
Yeah.
And I like totally knew this was going to happen. So I woke up, I had my normal breakfast. So every long run, I always, you know, have my toast. I still eat my egg whites in the morning. I put just a little bit of Kerrygold butter on my toast. And then I have a side of usually blueberries, raspberries, whatever fruit we have, typically berries. And then lately I started trying to introduce a little bit of honey. I know that sometimes digestively doesn't work well with me, but it helps bring in a little extra carbs. And then I usually do a powdered like carb source. Screwed up, didn't do that. And
you should do that like an hour before the run. Yeah.
Yes, and I wasn't hydrated. All I had was like coffee and maybe a glass of water, and then like on the run, we ran out of the gels that we typically like, and we tried something new, and I hated it.
So you couldn't even get that down.
I was like, as I was trying to drink it, I was like, like it was like I was about to throw it up.
For those that are wondering, it's a honey stinger.
It's not good.
Gel. I loved it. But basically all it is, it's honey. So like you don't like honey. I've been known by our boys. They're like, Jordan, are you doing honey shots, Dad? You know honey shots? Like just doing shots of honey. I love honey. But for those that don't, it's probably not a good option.
I don't know. It was like thick and it tasted like medicine to me.
Yeah.
And
it's hard when you're running too.
Probably like more like a natural honey. I don't know. But, you know, so I got maybe half of that down, and I was like, I tried everything. I swallowed it really quickly. I tried to like swish it in my mouth to like get it not so thick.
And of course we didn't have our running water bottles with us too.
No.
So we didn't have any water. So
yeah. So, I mean, by at least 6 mile, I always like around like that 6 mile time, I'm typically kind of like, whoo, this is mentally like I got to talk myself through this next couple miles. But I had to talk myself through the next 4 to 5 miles. And it was like probably not the best self-talk, but it was like, don't stop, you know, you got this, don't stop. You're not going to stop. You've never stopped before, you know. And I mean, it was a little more
a little more hard, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I tried to tone that down.
This is hardcore.
Yeah, so maybe a little cussing. And yeah, I tried to tone that down for you guys, and if your kids are listening. So yeah, I'm just very hard on myself, and I was like, you're not stopping, you're gonna do this. And sometimes that can be good, and other times it's like, maybe you should listen to your body. Most of the time you should listen to your body.
Yeah.
But I learned my lesson.
We were underhydrated.
100%.
You couldn't fuel intra-workout. We didn't carry a running water bottle, so we couldn't hydrate during the workout. You didn't have any electrolytes before the workout. So like the ultimate combination of bonking, you know, like that is a hardcore bonk. So the main thing is just learn from our mistakes, try to avoid bonking. And all it has to do with is just underfueling. And that's a huge example. You can even see that in strength training sessions too. You know, I've seen it, I've experienced it myself, and I see it sometimes with clients too. And a lot of times it'll happen in two different situations. It'll happen to people that train in the mornings, fasted, or it'll happen to people that train after work and they haven't eaten anything. Maybe they had a light lunch, or maybe they didn't even have lunch at all and they come and train on E. Your body's just like a gas tank. I mean, if you don't put gas in your body, it's probably not going to go anywhere fast or even go anywhere at all. So especially if you're training hard, you have to respect your body and respect your goal enough to fuel. And if you are not, that's a huge area of opportunity. You know, with strength training sessions, everybody's a little different. Even with running, everybody's a little different on what they can stomach, how well their food digests. Some people, Alyssa, can eat something and go right and work out, you know? Like that's something that you can do.
That's something I need to do, actually.
Yeah. Alyssa's the type of person that, like, 30 minutes into a workout session, she's like, man, I'm hungry. Like,
hey, I'm sure.
Like, how can you think about food right now? I'm sure there's lots of other
people out there.
Yeah. But again, take your own goals and your own needs of what you need to do to have good workouts, get through workouts, feel your body. And that all just happens by testing it and practicing. And you might realize, hey, I had a really good workout today. What did I do that was so good? Well, maybe you were hydrated. You had a good meal an hour or two out from that strength training or running session. You had some electrolytes before, during, or after the workouts. You got a good night's sleep the night before. Like, all of these things start to culminate, and just start to pay attention to those things, because they do make a big difference. And vice versa. If you're like, man, I've had like 3 or 4 bad workouts in a row. What's going on here? You know, just kind of jot down some things. Slept like trash. I'm hardly drinking any water. I'm not eating before my workouts, or I'm not eating very well, or even throughout the day, I'm not fueling my body. I'm in a really sharp caloric deficit. You know exactly what you need to do to start having good workouts and fuel your body.
Yeah. So something that helped me too with not getting as hungry mid-workout was sipping on electrolytes throughout the workout. The electrolytes provide you with potassium, magnesium, and sodium. And so I think after that run too, I was lacking electrolytes, and that actually like dipped all the way until the next day.
Yeah.
Because I came in to do a strength training session, and my wrist just felt
felt weak. Yep.
Yeah, like I couldn't even put out effort yesterday that I wanted to in my strength training session.
And you even supplemented with electrolytes, but it was already too late, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, it was like you were already in a deficit, so that was already going to take its toll. Yeah. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I was playing catch up with that, but I do feel that like implementing this in mid-workout helps make a difference too. And, you know, when you think of electrolytes, you think of like, oh, sweating, oh, you know, at a sporting event, you think of Gatorade, whatever it is, you know, but that isn't the only time that we need electrolytes. We need electrolytes daily.
Yeah.
And I don't know like where salt got demonized, but people are like afraid to incorporate salt into their diets, but we actually need salt. We need to be hydrated with water, but we need to complement that with the electrolytes. And I think when we think salt, we think of like sodium, and there's bad sodium and good sodium. There's like, you know, table salt that's not going to be great quality of sodium. Packaged foods is not going to be great quality, right?
Yeah.
So those are things that I think people think of when they think of like sodium and salt. It's they think of the bad stuff.
Yeah, and like, so sodium and salt per se gets a lot of bad publicity because, yeah, in people that are very sedentary, or people that are in a hospital, like they're on low sodium diets, because they're not moving very much, you know, they're very sedentary. Mm-hmm. And what sodium does is it draws fluid into the tissue. So that's where you start to see fluid retention and edema. If you've ever seen people with swollen ankles, swollen legs, edema in their tissues, and they're like, their protocol is instantly low sodium, low salt. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's like a medical reason for that.
Yeah.
But for people that are active, which if you're listening to this podcast, more than likely you are active, or you strength train, or you run, or you train hybrid, or you're active throughout the week, you need sodium in your diet. And not just sodium too, you need the other electrolytes that we talked about too, potassium and magnesium.
Yep. That's
going to help maintain electrolyte neutrality. And by doing so, you're going to be able to give effort, because as your blood electrolyte level starts to drop, what happens is so does your performance. So if you are working out, especially for more than an hour, that's a huge area of opportunity that your performance is going to start to decrease, because your blood electrolyte level is decreasing as well. So huge area of opportunity. And again, it just comes back to fueling your body properly. And you have to realize that whatever you're training for, there's going to be inherent nutritional applications that you need to introduce into your training system and your workout program and your nutrition program. So figure out what your goals are, what your needs are. It's going to be very different for everybody. If you are training for like a half marathon or a marathon and you're also lifting, your caloric needs are going to increase exponentially. And you need to meet those caloric increases. Otherwise, you're going to waste away, or you're not going to be able to train as hard as you want to. Maybe for a couple weeks, but it's going to set in and you're going to wish that you would feel it before. So find out what your goals are and make sure that you're matching it with the appropriate nutrition program, because it's not just the workouts that matter. It's combining the workouts with the nutrition, taking whatever your workout goals are and fueling your body properly so that you can reach those goals, that every workout you come in and that it's intense and that it's productive and that you can just stack one brick and just build something that's really incredible. And it's not going to happen overnight, but if you're having bad workouts, it's not going to happen, period.
Right. So we have like 3 levels of nutrition. We have our fat loss, we have maintenance, and then we have like a surplus, which would be like building muscle. And in all of those levels, we never want to change our protein.
Yeah.
So protein is always staying the same. The things that are going to change, depending on which level you're at, are going to be the carbs and the fats. And that depends on the person. For me personally, I typically like to tweak the carbs more so, because fats typically leave them around the same, unless you're in that surplus. You got to add from somewhere, and we can't eat too much amount of carbs.
Yeah.
But so in that being said, with that being said, you want to make sure you're keeping protein all the same. So 1 gram per body weight of protein, and then you can manipulate that however you want, but we like to keep carbs in that like 45 to 50% range.
Which is pretty high, which is higher than you normally would think it would be.
Yeah. So determine which one of those you're trying to achieve. And like we've talked about multiple times, we go through different phases in our lives. And, there's times where we want to lose weight. There's times where Jordan wants to be in a surplus. I never want to be in a surplus.
You want to get thick muscles?
No, I mean, because I do believe that at maintenance, you can still put on a little bit of muscle.
Yeah.
It's a slower process.
Yeah.
But it is possible. When you're in that surplus, you are likely to gain more body fat mass and body percentage.
Yeah, it's inevitable. You can't avoid that.
Yeah. So I typically don't like to mess in that phase so much, but so just keeping that in mind, figuring out which goal you're trying to achieve and allowing yourself to, reach that goal and then go into that maintenance and, give yourself breaks from each goal is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, I want to gain weight. Okay, no, now I don't want to gain weight. I don't want to lose weight. Oh, I'm going back to maintenance. Like whatever goal you have, you need to spend enough time in that phase. So like if you're trying to lose body fat, you need to at least spend 8, 12, 16 weeks in that deficit.
No more than that, probably.
Yeah.
I would say.
The 16 is the higher range. The 8 is kind of that minimum. But that's where you're going to see a bulk of the progress, because the first couple weeks, more than likely, you're going to be not tracking properly. You're not going to be consistent. Maybe your workouts are consistent. Once you start to create that habit, about 4 weeks in, that's where you're going to dial everything down. And then that's where you really start seeing some progress. So, 8 to 16 weeks, at that point, your metabolism is going to be pretty dormant. And you either are either going to need to make some changes to that, increase your movement, or take a couple week break back up at maintenance, just to refresh and everything. And then if you have more body fat to lose, then you can drop back into that deficit. Same thing with gaining muscle. If you are trying to put on 10 pounds of muscle, it's not going to happen overnight. 10 pounds of muscle is a lot of muscle tissue. Like the analogy that I always give is, imagine like if you took, say you wanted to put on 10 pounds of muscle. Imagine like you took 2 handfuls of beef and you put it on your body. Okay, now do that 9 more times. Like every handful of beef that you had is like a half a pound of muscle. that's a lot of muscle, So
Yeah.
just taking it very small steps at a time. In order to build muscle tissue and significant muscle tissue, you need to be in that caloric deficit. But like Alyssa mentioned, you're also going to put body fat in the process. It's just part of the process. There's no way that you can avoid that. And what's going to happen is you're going to build muscle, you're going to get stronger, but you're also going to add some body fat on in the process. And if you just keep staying in that, and it's called a permabulk, where you're just permanently in a bulk forever, you're going to build a lot of muscle, but you're also going to build a lot of body fat too. And you eventually got to strip that down. So diet breaks are very important to building muscle too. So figuring out those goals, and you can always switch from one to the other, go back to maintenance, but just spend enough time in that phase to see the changes that you want to see. Because if you're just hopping all over the place, you're not going to spend enough time or be consistent enough to see the progress. And then people are like, oh, like that program didn't work, or oh, that workout style didn't work for me. It's more than likely any workout style works. It's just you have to be consistent with it, and you have to give it enough time. Be patient with it and just do it consistently. And I promise you that you're going to see the results you want to see.
Yeah, and kind of back to what we talked about in the beginning of, keeping it like that 80-20 rule. With a bulk, it's not like we're going, sweet, we got to go eat pizza and ice cream.
Yeah,
and
Chinese buffet.
Yeah, like no, it's,
No way.
I mean, we're not but like, when you're in that surplus, you are tracking that surplus. Number one, like I said, hitting the protein, and then making sure you're still getting in like quality food, fruits, vegetables, grains. So it's not like a free for all. And, you can still fit in those things a lot easier. Like if you wanted to have a couple Oreos a day or whatever you want to do, like make it fit your macros, but just know that like the good quality foods are what is going to get you through your performance, give you the energy to sustain your workouts, and, keep you feeling full longer, which in a surplus, you're going to feel full. But
yeah. And it's never like, no matter what your goal is, like you said, always structure food around whole food sources. If you're trying to gain weight, you're trying to maintain weight, you're trying to lose weight. It's not the type of food that changes, it's the quantity of the food. So if you're trying to gain weight, you're going to eat more chicken, beef, fish, sweet potatoes, rice, oatmeal, more veggies, more healthy fats. If you're trying to lose weight, you're going to eat less chicken, steak, fish, carbs, vegetables. Like you're just going to eat less good food, Yeah. The quality of food doesn't change. And, that's a good place to start with a lot of people,
Yeah.
I know tracking is very important for no matter what your goal is, but let's also not try to complicate it too. Like if you're eating less and moving more, as long as you're eating enough, you're not starving yourself and you're intuitively listening to your body, you can make a lot of progress just on that. So
absolutely,
there's a lot to be said about just listening to your body, because it will tell you when it needs more food. It's going to tell you when, hey bro, it's enough. Like stop shoving chicken breast down my throat, because I'm done, your body's going to let you know. So we do obviously recommend that you track to streamline the process and take all the guesswork out of it. But if you're not ready for that, and you want to focus more on the workouts, being consistent with that, I applaud that too. You just have to realize what stage and what you're ready to handle in your fitness journey.
Yeah, and what also is a good indicator too is if you keep your meals like super simple. So like I know every morning my breakfast looks the same for you. So if you're in a surplus, you maybe add an extra piece of toast.
Yeah.
To that meal, or
an extra egg or two.
Yep. So it's very simple, and then like when you're in a deficit, maybe you take a piece of toast away, and then add more egg whites, because when you're in that deficit, you want to eat things that are going to make you stay full longer. So volumizing your food is a good way to keep you feeling full. And so what that looks like is maybe you're adding cauliflower rice to your rice, or
more veggies,
more vegetables,
potatoes instead of rice. Yeah.
Yep. Because rice can be deceiving. You don't get very much rice
for the amount of carbs. Yeah.
But it's a lot of calories, and sweet potatoes and red potatoes, any potato really, is a good lower carb source than rice would be. So knowing those things and being mindful of that, it can go a long way too if you're not willing to track. But tracking is always going to be the best way to see results.
It's just going to streamline things and take all the guesswork out of it. Like, am I in a caloric deficit? Am I not? You know, like, so it just takes all that guesswork out of it.
Yeah.
So to kind of summarize what we talked about today, the main takeaways are there's no food that's good or bad. And if you're in this place where you are really struggling with looking at food as good and bad, and you have a bad relationship with food, I get it. I feel for you because I've been there, and I know you've been there too, Alyssa.
I still go through that.
Yeah, it's you're not alone in that. But for us and our experience, we have shifted our goals from body composition and more towards performance. And for us, it's done a couple things. It's allowed us to not hyper-analyze and over-analyze our bodies, because that can become very critical. And your bodies don't change overnight, you know? Like, if you're solely defining your fitness progress by what you see in the mirror, it's a really slow process.
And you're never going to be happy.
Yes, you're never going to be happy because you're never going to be complacent with what you see. And we've both been in the gym for 10 plus years. So the progress, body composition wise, does come slower. You know, your body it knows all the tricks for the strength training sessions. It knows, hey, I know he's going to do this exercise, and then he's going to come over here. It's ready for it. So you have to really like give your body a swift kick in the ass to put on some muscle or build some strength.
Yeah,
to trick it. But when you focus on performance, your body's going to change, because if you're focusing on getting stronger, adding more volume over time, adding more sets, more reps, trying more progressed exercises and harder variations of exercises, your body's going to change. You're going to see body composition changes from the hard work that you're putting in the gym. If you are focusing, for us, if we're focusing on getting faster at running, improving our running speed, improving our running form, improving our aerobic capacity and our anaerobic capacity, all those things are going to help at improving our body composition. So by focusing on our performance, it is underlying helping us improve our body composition, but it's not the main goal. And for me, that's been very helpful, because I don't hyper analyze and over analyze what my body looks like after every single day or every single week, or that becomes a very hard place to be. So for us, it's really helped. And you know, if you're looking to give it a shot, I'd highly recommend it. I don't think that you just ditch, you know, body composition based goals. You still want to track. Like, we have an in-body machine that tracks our body composition, so our muscle mass, our body fat, our water. We'll use that as a tool, but it's not the end all be all. And it doesn't mean that, you know, oh, my body fat is not 8% body fat. It doesn't mean that I don't find worth in myself.
Right.
You're worth a lot more than what a scale tells you.
No one knows what that number looks like unless you're going around yelling about it.
Yeah. So it does help, and it helps relieve some of the stress and anxiety from the gym, where, you know, I think people are so fast to, like, they want to reach these goals and they want to get to this weight, and it's like, oh, I'm at my goal weight and I'm going to maintain it for the rest of my life. But there's so many different seasons of life, and if you're not focusing on getting better at the gym and then just enjoying that, you're missing the whole point.
I got to say something before we wrap it up, because the whole time I'm thinking about this in terms of a car. So, like, you always see this, like, beautiful, like, Ferrari or Lamborghini, and let's say, like, you got your body to exactly where you want in terms of a car. So, like, Ferrari, Lamborghini, whatever your pick is. And you open up the door and you go to turn the car on and it won't start. That's pretty much what it's like when you get to a certain level and you look a certain way, but you can't perform. Like, I remember being ready to go step on stage and I could, like, barely leg extension. I remember so vividly. I could barely do 30 pounds of leg extension the week before I was about to go on stage. So I would much rather be this Jeep Wrangler that looks badass and can go off-roading and can
do it all.
Yeah.
That's right. A Swiss Army knife.
Can go up the mountains and just do cool shit. And now, you know, I'm doing pull-ups and, you know, we're running half marathons. Like, I just think that is so much cooler than going, and to each their own. I love bikini I love competing in bikini competitions, and who knows if one day I'll go back into that too. But as of right now, this phase of my life, I'm really enjoying, pushing my body to extreme levels versus looking a certain way, but then not being able to like show for that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you look great, but what can you do with that?
Exactly. Yeah, you don't just want to look the part. You want to be able to do the part. Like, what can your body do? We only get one life. We only get one shot at this, So why not just go out and see what your body's capable of, what your mind is capable of? I know since we've started training this hybrid style, I've grown leaps and bounds from a mental toughness aspect
100%.
and also from a confidence aspect. Like, knowing that if I set a goal and I work towards it, I can achieve it. That's a very powerful thing because you can apply that to any other aspect of your life. And if you have a goal, you stick to the process that you laid out in front of you. And if you do everything that you're supposed to do, if it leads to that goal, that is so powerful when you're like, wow, that, what else can I do? Let's set the bar higher. Let's set the bar higher.
Yeah.
Not just fitness, like anything. So
cool.
It is very cool, and it's very rewarding. And for me, it's been a great change, and I truly do enjoy training in this style. Not saying that this is the best style for every single person out there. This is just what I love to do. We're documenting that. We're sharing our love for that. And you can take it. You can leave it. You can take some parts that you like. You can throw away some parts that you don't. That's perfectly fine. But we hope that this helps in some way, shape, or form, give some insight to how we're fueling our bodies to perform and the importance of fueling your bodies. It's not this thing where we should look at food as good and bad. Food is just energy at the end of the day. Food is there for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not necessarily like super good. There's some foods that are very good and healthy for you.
Hey,
so
doc says eat an apple every day.
Apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's right. So this is how we're feeling our bodies, and it is very important. So hope you guys found something helpful in the podcast today. If you guys enjoyed, let us know. Reach out and follow along for our journey on this half marathon prep. We have
5 weeks left.
5 weeks to go. Yeah. So when they'll be listening to this, it'll be 4 weeks to go because we'll be on week 8. So coming up soon. We have a prep coming up after that. So we'll kind of dive into that in the next upcoming weeks, kind of what our process and our plans are coming up forward to just set the bar a little bit higher. Like we said, you are powerful, and you're capable of setting any goal that you can think of and achieving that goal. You just have to believe in yourself and just stick with that process.
Put your mind to it.
That's right. So thanks for tuning in to the podcast, guys, and listen to what we have to say. We will catch you guys in the next episode.